So next we're going to move on to our next question. What are the most effective strategies for seeking a position in this field? How can somebody go about obtaining employment with one of your amazing companies? So Elizabeth is going to address that question first.
Yeah, I think that I'm completely biased, but I think that one of the most effective strategies, to pursue a career in IT and innovation is to stay local. I think that, and that's not because it's, Forcura and SS&C on the call. That's not why I say that. I say that because as a person beginning their career, you could be greatly impacted by having mentors in the field. And I think that mentorship and menteeship relationships, especially in the world of technology, are crucial. And I think that it really helps you understand how to be a coworker, how to be a colleague, and so I think those are best created locally. I'm sure there's successful mentorship programs that span the miles. That's not what I'm a part of, but I think that, I would stay local. I would start small if you can. I think it would be incredibly difficult in this environment for a person beginning their career to embed themselves in a huge company or on a huge team. I know there's small teams within global companies, of course, but I think those would be my most effective strategies to begin your career. There's the tactics, there's the job boards, there's the LinkedIn profiles, there's the, there's all kinds of things that you can do. But I think really thinking about what would make you be most successful in your first position would be kind of grabbing onto a company where you can kind of develop your professional identity, and also grabbing onto potential mentors or leaders in the field that you can have a side-by-side convo with, or somebody that can look over your shoulder while you're, on your machine, I think is really valuable.
That's great insight. Thank you so much. And staying local is something we're always promoting with our talent pipeline. We definitely want to encourage them to keep using their skill set right here in our region. So yeah. Thank you for speaking our language. All right, David, what are some strategies you would recommend?
Yeah, it's interesting too, because when I think stay local, even if they work here locally and they work for a company in Texas, we still have that local talent and resource. So I think even how we define what local is can be somewhat debated. I mean, it's a great asset if they're working locally with our local companies, but the fact that we still have the talent in our community is so vital to our success going forward. And the other thing I would say, if you're a job seeker looking for a position, certainly a lot of people will take the simple broadcast approach, hit all the job boards, hit every HR portal. That's a really competitive way to pursue a job, because everybody in the world is doing that too. And I do believe where you can engage, whether it's within professional associations or other people within, but they have a particular interest, could be very effective for you. And if you even liken that to, what do we tell kids that are coming out of college or high school going into college? We have this, real elaborate of, you need to be socially responsible and get engaged in the community and put all these things in your application for college. Well, really think about that same thing from a business perspective. If you're passionate about, robotics or AI and all of these things, leverage that to your best ability to try and turn that into a meaningful career for you too. And so as you're, for instance, choosing an internship or using where you work if you're coming out of university, really approach it with the mindset of, if Forcura or SS&C, seems to offer the career opportunity that I want, then work really hard to pursue that opportunity, to engage with those folks so that I can understand their organization, because it's really a mutual learning for both parties. The people I'm working with will get to assess my attitude and aptitude for doing things. And the flip side, I can also see, hey, is this a place I can fit in, and will I get the career opportunities that I want to get? But you do have to invest some time, I think, in doing it. And to me, if you just want to submit a electronic application or a resume, that's not putting a lot of effort into it if you really want to pursue, that kind of eternal happiness and career path. And, I think the more you invest, the more you'll get out of it.
Great. So be pretty strategic in how you approach your job search would be your recommendation. Okay, great. Jeff, let's hear from you.
Yeah, sure. I think that another thing to touch on would be you should try to build out a portfolio of some kind. Pick an area that you're interested in and go look it up on YouTube or go to Udemy and watch a couple of videos. And the next thing you know, you could be building out a home lab, in your house. You can start tinkering and, take advantage of free resources from whether it's Amazon Web Services or Azure, and you could take advantage of free stuff to learn more and start to build out your portfolio. And then you can look at, I mentioned before, but maybe local staffing agencies or managed service providers that might be more likely to hire entry-level candidates, but they'll know who the companies are as well and what they're looking for. And, there's somebody that could figure out how to get a resume in front of me. And I'd like to be able to see something on there that is interesting to me. And where can I go to view some of your projects, some of the stuff that you've tinkered with, things like that. Just like designers come and they bring a portfolio of all their previous designs, and software engineers come and the first thing on their resume is their GitHub profile. You've got to show that you've put in a little bit of the work to build out your brand.
Awesome, thank you. And I think that's interesting because people think about branding from a marketing perspective, but it's also about marketing your talent and what is your personal brand. So that's an interesting component of the conversation when we're talking with students as well. So thank you all for your insight there. Moving on to our next question. So Anna had shared some interesting information earlier today about exciting trends, things that are happening in this space and in this region. But I'm curious to hear from each of you to share some exciting industry trends that, of course, involve technology and innovation that maybe our audience doesn't know about. So David's going to kick us off with that response.
And some of the stats, I think, tell the story on the front end. So if you look at, for instance, where's the job growth coming from? The job growth in STEM jobs is 3 times faster than non-STEM jobs. The salary in STEM careers in the top 50 cities is 69% more than non-STEM careers in those cities. So kind of the obvious trends, I think, are showing up for us, but there's a lot of different areas you can think of. One of the ones that comes to mind to me, Julie, it's something I learned on the JAXUSA trip to Nashville, which, that whole hospital at home project, to see the combination of technologies of where you can deliver total, healthcare at someone's home with devices, professionals and such, and think about how that happened. Well, some is this IoT world, the infrastructure world, where we have access to data and real-time decisioning that we never had before. Some of the other things, think about AI. I mean, I don't know if everyone else wondered. Well, I used to wonder just why all those Amazon boxes showed up out front, but it's really, you think about some of the artificial intelligence and machine learning and some of the capabilities within Google and Amazon, these other places where they've truly figured out what you want and they know how to serve up what you're looking for in advance. So they're starting to take data and really use it to drive business outcomes for them, which also means a financial outcome for me. But and then even think about something like drones. I mean, in many cases, drones used to be perceived probably to some as being kind of a toy or something, something cool to do at home. But think about how now the technology and the business purpose have come together in using something like drones for short-term delivery, the last mile of delivery of products and services, or even thinking about something like the train derailment that's going on, how you can use it in a public safety application where instead of putting individuals in harm's way to go assess a situation, you can take a drone with high-def cameras and fly in really low and kind of see what's going on, or a forest fire. So I think as we see more and more of those things come together, think about how that changes the career landscape of someone who's choosing fire safety. Well, they're choosing fire safety at being an FAA pilot that's making an environmental assessment. It's like, wow, all that just happened overnight. But, so I think those are just some things that come to mind when you think how some of those technologies are coming together to drive jobs. Some people would say, well, that's just going to do away with a bunch of jobs too, because it's going to automate all of these things. There's some projections. I think the World Economic Council said it was like 85 million jobs will be replaced through automation in the next 3 years. But 97 million new ones will be created. So it's just going to be a different set of jobs. Back to the point of we've got to start upskilling and investing.
Exactly. And those are concrete examples that students can relate to. Those students have gotten the Amazon box. They've seen, this horrific story of the train derailment on the news. And so it's a way for them to connect their skills, interest, and aptitude to real life situations that are occurring. So thank you for sharing that. Elizabeth.
Yeah, gosh, there are so many trends happening in the healthcare tech world, that many of them, really brought on by the pandemic. David, I couldn't agree with you more. The thought of or the concept of care at home is something that was happening, but certainly since the pandemic and now going forward, there are so many patients, millions of patients that are receiving life-saving or life-lengthening care in the home, and the outcomes are better. You don't have to be hospitalized and risk hospital infection. You can have it at home. But that brings upon a new challenge in healthcare, which is connectivity and interoperability. And how does, the software application that the home health nurse is using, how does that get information securely back to your primary care physician? And then if you are traveling and have to be hospitalized in Portland, Oregon, how is the Mayo Clinic going to find out about the treatment that you received? And so that is, this interoperability and this idea of connectivity is something that is all providers are thinking about, and all companies like Forcura are thinking about, how can we contribute to it? A colleague of ours had a funny story. He was driving his vehicle in Maine, and he had car trouble, and he didn't buy his car in Maine. He was traveling in Maine, and he took it to the local dealership, and they ran his VIN number, and they could tell you everything that the car has been through. 10,000 miles ago, you got a new tire. 5,000 miles before that, you had an oil change. We can't reproduce that in healthcare. If something happens to me when I'm traveling, even in my home country, the United States, so many different people and systems have to be brought to the table to give, my care provider information about that. So how does the healthcare industry catch up to the car care industry, the automotive industry? It's an interesting, way to say it, but, how do we increase those lines of communication? And that's something that Forcura is certainly contributing to. I don't think we're going to solve it outright, but it's something that we can contribute to, and we want to contribute to. So.
Wow, that's so interesting, right? We can track our cars better than we can track our healthcare
Yeah.
at this moment. So, but we're making strides.
Yes.
And that's why we're so glad that you all are here.
Absolutely.
That's a great point. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, the intersection of healthcare and technology is pretty near and dear to me. I have one of my sons is a type 1 diabetic, and he wears devices on his body that didn't exist 20 years ago. So I can look at his blood sugar all day long, every day, from my phone or from my screen. The devices he wears talk to each other and gives him insulin automatically, and it's just really changed diabetes care for us as parents. But just in generally speaking, technology, software, and services are everywhere. And coming from my background, I kind of understand how I'm able to see his blood sugar on my computer screen. He has a device that talks to another device, that talks to a cloud service. I talk to the cloud service on the other end. Understanding the flow of information, it's really, really cool how all that works. And the same goes for finance. And I had some trouble recently opening an account with a financial institution that I used to be a customer with a long time ago. And it's because there was breadcrumbs of me in their system, and they couldn't figure it out. And I tried to kind of help them diagnose the problem. Other examples, like we touched on earlier, but AI, Chat GPT and other kind of like AI-based search tools have been in the news a lot lately. A lot of negative things have been written about them so far, and how they're kind of scary and the way that these things seem to take on an attitude. But I think that it's going to be a deal breaker. Sorry, not a deal breaker, a game changer for improving search, improving access to information. You do a lot of Googling in this field. And to be honest, Google is not what it used to be. There's so much junk, there's so much spam, there's so many ads, there's so many people re-stealing content and just trying to get clicks and make money off of serving you ads. So I think that as knowledge workers and trying to solve problems, being able to cut through all that junk to get to a good answer, at least to get you started, is going to be awesome for everybody. And like David mentioned, AI may eliminate some jobs, but more are going to be created. We're going to be eliminating a lot of the stuff that we don't like about our jobs so that we can do more of the stuff that we do like about our jobs. And I think that's going to be great.
That's awesome. Well, that'll be really empowering for those in the field and exciting for those that are thinking about getting in the field. So I think that's some amazing perspectives that you all have offered that just enhanced and supplemented some of the stats that we shared a little bit earlier on in our workforce briefing today. So thank you all so much for that. What kind of accomplishments really tend to be valued and rewarded? And I'm guessing I'm going to hear, tinkering, troubleshooting, kind of the ability to vet information for validity, those sorts of things. But what other things are going to really set somebody apart and allow them to really grow their career pathway? Elizabeth, what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, unofficially, but officially, Forcura deems itself kind of a best idea wins environment. So it doesn't really matter, who the idea comes from or what team it even comes from. We have tons of, enhancements, on our software applications or solutions that come from teams that wouldn't even know how to make it possible, but they just know the outcome would be so much better, So I think, not to repeat ourselves completely, but yeah, it's just a curiosity, kind of that that hunger to not, not let a problem fester, to kind of figure out a way or an innovative way to get it solved or contribute to making it a little bit better. So yeah, I think that dedication and that good attitude can only help you in any industry. Just also the drive to stay up to date with technology.
Mm-hmm.
We ask on every interview, Jeff, I know you do too, I'm sure, how do you stay up to date with technology? What Reddits are you reading? What, YouTube channels do you subscribe to? How are you keeping up with it? And that is very illuminating in a candidate interview,
Mm-hmm.
We'd love to hear that people are always thinking about it and wondering and, seeking out information. So I would just say those are my two. I'd love to hear from David and Jeff what they would say.
Yeah, that's great. And what you just said reinforces something I remember hearing in a previous workforce briefing, which is our industry is very democratic. And the fact that kind of the best idea wins and we're open, and even teams that normally don't create the solution can think of it.
Oh yeah.
And they can, put that information forward, and that seemed to be valuable. So I think that's great.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. Jeff.
Yeah, I think fundamentally just providing great service to people is rewarded, whether it's, like I said, your own teammates, your internal customers, the other product team you might be collaborating with on a new feature, or another team in an organization that is kind of dependent on you for them to succeed. They need something from you. So to being able to kind of make their day and provide great service is always a good thing. Being able to solve difficult problems, and a lot of times increasingly difficult problems, in creative ways goes a long way. So identifying opportunities for automation, if something happens one time and you fix it, that's great. If it happens a second time and a third time and a fourth time, let's think about why this is happening and how do we nip this in the bud? Do I have to do something differently to solve it the last time? And just as you advance in your career, your problems and your projects, they just get larger and larger in scope, and your opportunity to be creative really comes out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. David.
You said a word earlier that reminded me of something Satya Nadella at Microsoft said years ago. That part of the thing we have to do is democratize technology. And I think we're in that place now where we have done that, but it comes with a lot of other responsibilities, because now we're thinking about how do we continuously make ourselves better every day. We're in this cycle of 20 years ago you had this circle of improvement where it was a very traditional, you're always monitoring and changing. Well, now a lot of it's happening real time, and we get our report cards from customers and internal employees, in the milliseconds, it comes back to us instantly. So how do we as organizations, figure out what's good and bad anymore. I mean, some of it is how do we optimize our own internal teams? If you take Jeff's approach for AI, for instance, we could easily celebrate the fact that some of the mundane tasks that absorb a lot of significant time from very valuable resources, you can look at that as like a digital succession planning, where now I can say these jobs are going to be done in a repeatable, consistent, predictable way, so I can focus on more important things. But then what are those important things? And I think that's where individuals and companies have to be thinking about, really how do you foster or a culture or an environment so that you're always looking to innovate and deliver better outcomes to your internal teams, also deliver better outcomes to your external customers, because it will make you healthier as a company. And part of that is being able to measure it. How do you have the right metrics in place to know what's good or bad? Many times it's not just a financial metric that we need to be looking at, but I think creating that environment so that we're always trying to be better as an organization, both to our customers internal, because we are connected forever now, because we can't alter our delivery to customers without having talented people to do that.
So true. Well, thank you all for sharing your perspectives on the accomplishments, how they're valued and rewarded in the workplace. Just wonderful responses from all three of you. Moving on to our next question. What's the biggest misconception that you see about technology within your industry or the people in it? And Jeff is going to lead us on that response.
Yeah, I think that if you asked 10 people on the street what IT is, a lot of them will probably just think that it's the person that helped me fix my computer. I had a virus. I can't run Outlook anymore. I can't browse the web anymore. My computer's so slow. And I mean, to be honest, I used to do that when I was in my teenage years. I would fix family members' computers and everything. But there's so much more than that. We've talked about everything, whether it's cloud services and the AI, and technology is everywhere. And everywhere you turn, everywhere you look, every device you have, there's technology and software that are driving everything about the 21st century economy. So it's just everywhere, and it's just so much more than that. And once you get your foot in the door, you can really, like we said, you can pick where you want to specialize and just kind of go for it. And there's so much to learn and always be learning.
That's fantastic. Thank you. David.
Yeah, I think the fact we're never really there in technology is what's interesting to me. It's the misconception of you have the expert or this person has an expertise with this skill set, and I would add to that, they have it for today. But what does that look like in the future? So so I think how we evaluate people's capabilities really needs to be looked more at for the moment in time, which to me says the people who are really successful, it's something innate that they have internally that allows them to be successful in that space. And then if you look at, kind of back to the point of how do people get in that space, I think we probably had some stereotypes that maybe were a little bit inaccurate of, you have to have a college degree to be a software developer. I would tell you that a lot of probably some of the most talented developers that I know didn't get a degree in computer science. They didn't go through an architectural program with, company ABC. It's something they had internally that they tapped into. So I think that stereotype of where these talented professionals come from in technology, is probably something we're now all starting to retire and realize it's really about individual capabilities and how do we really tap into that and make it a successful piece of our corporate environment that they definitely need to learn and have the opportunity to acquire new skills. But some people have the ability to acquire any skill. It's really just about, do they have the interest in acquiring it? So I think just retiring that stereotype of what it takes to be in technology is healthy for us to continue to grow our workforce.
Yeah, that's great. And the perspective, an expert for today, that also implies that you need to be comfortable with not always having the answers, but being resourceful to find the answers. And that speaks to what you all have been saying so far this morning. So thank you. Elizabeth.
Well, I have two common misconceptions about the industry, and I would be a bad recruiter if I didn't tout an accomplishment of Forcura. In a 2-hour call, I got to get it in, right? Well, the first misconception is that IT and innovation is a male-dominated industry. I think that is definitely changing for the better. Forcura is a software company that is 50% female, which I think is really exciting. And we see a lot of diversity on our technical teams too, which is really significant in making our product stronger, because the more perspectives you have when making these solutions it's just for the best, and it only benefits our clients and the patients that they are treating. So that's my first misconception and a shameless plug. And then the other misconception that is something that is really interesting is the misconception that clinicians or healthcare providers, and the same can probably be said for other types of industries, maybe even the financial services industry too, but that they're resistant to technology or resistant to using technology to facilitate their jobs. I think that's a big misconception. I think what they're really resistant to is overly cumbersome and overly kind of gross technology solutions that they've probably been used to. What people may not know about the healthcare industry, and I think financial services too, is that it was relatively recent that technology started to be used to bill and to chart patients and to monitor activities. It was brought on by a need to mitigate potential fraud. And so it's a recent development in the healthcare industry. And so I think what we see clinicians and providers being concerned about is this really going to help me do my job, or is this just another task I need to take on? So solutions like Forcura and some of our other healthcare technology companies are aiming to make their jobs easier or make them more connected, like I was talking about before. And quite interestingly, clinicians are very easy to pick up on solutions that they see making a positive impact in their day-to-day or in the care they're able to deliver to their patients. So those are my two misconceptions.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for addressing that question. And we have one additional question before you all can just kind of share some additional comments. But what does the future of your industry and organization look like nationally and here in Northeast Florida? So David.
Yeah, I think for many of the reasons that we talked about on this call, the companies are, I think, locally and nationally looking for partners to come help them solve problems. And it's usually within a combination of talent and technology. And I think when they look at the pace that they're evolving and growing, some are starting to realize you just can't keep adding people and keep up with the pace of technology. So I think these hybrid models of how, especially the large companies solve problems are becoming more and more common, because the cost of hiring people can be expensive. The cost of training people can be expensive. And if the shelf life of that capability is really short, sometimes it's hard to understand the return on investment that you get. So I think people are really looking at their resource model from a more global perspective, saying, what pieces do I need to really own as a company? Which pieces are really important, and use those as the client-facing pieces. And then how can I use a more creative model to be more resourceful and innovative, so that my go-to-market strategy for products and services will be much more efficient, and I can change as a company a lot faster. So I think we're seeing that across not just the country, but really around the globe, where people are really starting to identify what pieces they want and what piece they need help with. But it's about solving a problem that somehow trickles down to a talent issue or lack of talent.
Right, so true. Thank you, David. Elizabeth.
I think the future is bright here in Northeast Florida. I think we see, I'm a proud Florida Gator, and just a couple of weeks ago, we announced a new facility here to help people earn their education here in Jacksonville. That's just one example, obviously, but I think the future is bright in Jacksonville, and I think I hope the future is bright with respect to, David, you mentioned the workforce. It's been a hard few years and a weird few years. And I think that I'd like to see, some leveling off and people feeling comfortable in the new positions that they've obtained over the course of the last couple of years and the Great Recession or the Great Reshuffle, or however you want to label it, today. And I think it'll be interesting to see, with the changes in technology and the changes in the workforce, what companies like mine and Jess and David's can accomplish over the next couple of years, because there's been some noise, and so it's going to be nice to hear less noise, I think.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff?
Yeah, I think that the shift to hybrid or remote is here to stay. I think that you're going to see more and more people like Amazon and Disney trying to pull people back to the office for a certain amount of time. We're personally not interested in more than 6 or 7 days a month for people coming back to the office. So we're going to be figuring out this hybrid thing for a while, and making sure that our distributed teams are cohesive and able to feel like they're together, even though they may be separate. And the big spreading out of people for organizations, especially those of our size, there's a lot of security stuff that creates, and there's going to be a continued focus on security and managing risk for your workforce, because they're going to be everywhere, and that's always going to be a thing. Availability is going to be a big one. So, more and more companies are building products and shipping products and making sure that the products are always available and don't put all your eggs in one basket. So, want to make sure that you have redundancy and you using multi-cloud or hybrid cloud or however you're hosting your infrastructure. And getting back to the AI thing too, I really think that we're going to see a push to get rid of the mundane stuff in our lives. And SS&C recently acquired a company that was building robotic business process automation, basically AI workers to do mundane tasks. And it's a pretty new thing, and we're all kind of excited to see how that is going to work its way through the rest of the organization, and how other product teams can potentially leverage that technology to not just make our employees' lives better, but help build better solutions for our clients too.
That's fascinating. So much to look forward to, so many things that we're going to see as this industry continues to evolve. I just want to thank each of you for sharing your insights, and in the remaining few minutes that we have, just see if there are any additional closing comments or thoughts, maybe something we haven't touched on that has occurred to you that you'd like to share this morning.
Not for me. Thank you.
Okay.
Elizabeth, something you said really triggered a thought with me. And I think the reality, there has been a stereotype of it's kind of been a white male dominated tech workforce historically. And the numbers would probably show that it has been. But I think what it also shows, if we look at things objectively, is the future of the workforce is extremely bright. And the more inclusive that we can be at this point and bring in, a more diverse set of professionals to join in the technology space or the innovation space, the reality is we have to do that, or we'll never solve the talent problem, because there's such a large piece of the workforce. For instance, women make up more than 50% of the workforce, but they make up 20% of the technology workforce. So, so how do we solve that problem? I will say the things that we're doing in North Florida are very pioneering, and the fact that we're talking about this and investing this every day is critical. And that some of it's just the awareness, but I think we're already starting to see the results too. I know you've probably seen this, Julie, and Anna has well, but some of the stats out of UNF are amazing. The two fastest growing populations in the School of Computing are minorities and females in the School of Computing at UNF. So the work that we're doing is working because our kids are getting the exposure, they're choosing UNF, and they're choosing these high-tech career fields that we know need to be there. So by default, I think our workforce will become more diverse and I think inclusive. And I think that's healthy, because everybody should have a chance to participate in whatever capacity their interest is, or whatever income they'd like to earn. And I think the folks working in those initiatives should be commended for the amount of investment they're making to make that happen.
So true, and I'm so glad that you brought that up. And the work with STEM2 Hub too is also increasing that awareness. So thank you for that. I know you're very involved in that, David. Brian, I think, wants to add a closing thought as well.
I don't know if it's worthy of a closing thought, but I had a friend or an acquaintance that served in the Navy. He was a college roommate of my brother's, and he got into the nuclear corps where he served on a submarine. And we were talking with him and said, man, that must be miserable to go and dive and hide under an ice cap for a few months. And he goes, no, there's no other way I could have done the Navy. And we kind of dug and said, well, how is that? And he goes, you got to understand the brain power. And he wasn't trying to be braggadocious about himself, but he was talking about the enlisted who served under him. He goes, these guys are smart, if not smarter than me. They just came from households where they didn't go to college, at 18. They went into the Navy, and when the Navy did an aptitude test and realized how bright they were, they're like, we're sending you to the nuke program, which is a very, very exclusive club who can not only qualify for it, but get through it. So the point is one thing I keep trying to, again, foster in the local environment. And I know I won't say the name of a local employer, but there is one local employer who has like a specialized customer service queue. Now they're large enough to have the scale, but what they do is they look to that to be those people that they can get on a certificate path to come in. They've done those assessments. They know that they have that ability. So again, JAXUSA, Julie, find me, contact me, and we'll tell you more how we can partner with your program if you've thought about that. How do you find, how do you build, how do you recruit and create this pipeline that you can grow them internally? And we'd love to be a part of it. Thank you.